Hello everyone and welcome to Breaking Fast with Saint Sparklebear. I am Saint Sparklebear and I am so pleased that you chose to join me at my table today. Today I am joined by opera singer and dancer Dr. Melanie Holm. Melanie is totally amazing. She's melding both opera and dance together into this embodied art form that celebrates and intertwines both of those disciplines. Melanie lives in Brooklyn, New York, where she is in the teaching artist program at the Mark Morris Dance Group. We're talking about a whole bunch of cool stuff. First of all, we're eating Tex Mex Enchiladas, which are cheesy and wonderful and just yum. Secondly, we're going to be talking about callings. We're going to be talking about embodying our art and using our bodies to express in the world. We're also going to be talking about teaching, not only teaching from the teacher standpoint, but teaching from the student standpoint, and what that relationship of mentorship and teaching looks like. You know, how do we grow together? Before I get to the conversation, though, I did want to take just a minute to address the 2 acts of gun violence that have occurred this past week in our country. And I'm going to address it from a spiritual standpoint. There's a English mystic, Julian of Norwich, who is famous for saying, all will be well, and all will be well, and all manner of things will be well. And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, someone very dear to me said, so when are things going to be well now? Huh? When are things going to be well? And I didn't have an answer. And I still don't. We are living through heartbreaking, tragic, perilous times. We are living through a time where the systemic powers of domination and destruction are just hanging on for dear life and just won't go away. What do we do? How do we make things well? And the only way that's going to happen is through concrete action, through coming together, through building community, through establishing friendships and trusting relationships and learning to love one another again. I know that sounds insane. Why would you go out and try to love anyone right now? And that's the thing, is like, in times such as this, it's time to take a counterintuitive approach to the problem, because obviously, the regular solutions aren't working. So I don't know what that approach is necessarily. That's for individual people to figure out within their own hearts, kind of like listening to their core, and then listen to the core of yourself, that is love, that is life, that is creation, and how does that want to respond to this situation? Listen to that, do that, and I will do the same thing as best I can, including this podcast. Like, I know it seems simple, getting together with people, eating some food, talking about stuff, but that's the point, is that I'm just trying to like bring some sort of like nurturing back, some peace back, some love back to the world, doing it through food and through conversation, because that's where it starts. So I don't know when things will be well. I don't know when these tragedies will stop occurring. I do know that we can take small actions every day to try to create the world that we want to live in, and that those actions are not in vain. Not in vain. And I know that I love you. You listening right now, you. I love you. And anybody. And let's try to embody some love with one another and see where that goes. This has been, like, sometimes I talk about spiritual things and I'm just like, this is useless. What good is this for anybody? But, there it is, y'all. Take it or leave it. So Melanie, so we're going to listen to this conversation. We're going to eat some enchiladas. It's going to be awesome. Welcome. Join me. Pull up a chair, grab a plate, do it the other way. I don't know. It's time for Breaking Fast with Saint Sparklebear. That's me. Yay! Hi, Melanie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Aiden?
I am doing well. Would you like to introduce yourself, say your name, and your pronouns for me, please?
Oh, sure. My name is Melanie Holm, or I think technically, I guess it's Dr. Melanie Holm,
You're a
but I don't make that.
Yeah.
Technically. But you don't have to call me that.
Okay.
But please, Melanie.
Okay, cool.
I'm an opera singer and dancer based in Brooklyn, and I am currently in the teaching artist training program with the world famous Mark Morris dance group, which is really, really, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and thank you so much for having this be your first podcast ever.
I am super excited.
Are you?
I'm so glad that Wesley introduced me to you.
Yeah, I'm really glad too. Yeah, and Wesley is for the folks at home. Wesley is Wesley Sloat is one of the folks here at New Faith New Media, and he does one of our podcasts. And I'll probably figure out which one that is for when I do this, and then I'll put in the actual name of it. So, okay, well, yeah, okay, so today, the recipe you sent me was for enchiladas. So,
yes.
Yeah, so tell me about the enchiladas. Why are we eating enchiladas today?
So, the enchiladas recipe I sent you is for these Tex Mex Enchiladas that my mom makes, and it is one of my all-time favorite Bobby Holm recipes.
Yep.
My mom, Bobby. And
Hi, Bobby.
Yeah. She's a sweetheart. I love her.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where she got the recipe exactly. I know it's been, it's evolved a little bit over the years. Mm-hmm. But it's a go-to of mine when I need some comfort food and I need something that just tastes really good.
Yes.
I think it reminds me a little bit of this Mexican restaurant we went to every once in like Blue Moon when I was really little.
Yeah.
In Omaha, where I grew up,
mm-hmm.
called LB, where it's one of those places where if you can remember the last time you went there, it's probably too soon to go back because it would probably clog your arteries.
Okay, wait, say the name of this place again.
LB's
in Omaha, Nebraska, people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I would always get this like massive cheese enchilada that it was just like dough, cheese, fried with more cheese and sauce, and it was heavenly.
I mean, seriously, speaking of religious experiences. Exactly. And they also would always give you Tootsie Pops at the end with like your bill. Oh, that's adorable.
There's this really cute thing where my mom loved the grape Tootsie Pops a lot, and my dad would always be like, the grape one goes to mom.
Yeah, oh, dad's looking out for mom. That's cute.
Exactly. And so it was a big deal if mom like gifted the grape one.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's just like a warm, fuzzy memory, and I feel like in a way these enchiladas are a little like the healthier-ish like version of that.
Yeah, they're a warm, fuzzy memory kind of dish. Yeah, I love that. And the fact that they're so they remind you so much of home, is beautiful. So, and then is home like this like cheesy, warm, like you're like a little enchilada in a blanket kind of place for you?
Actually, yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
In a funny way, the more I'm adulting, or the older I get in this whole world of adulting.
Yeah, we just keep getting older. It keeps moving on. It's weird.
It's like, what is time?
What is time? We don't know. Oh, that's terrible.
Yes, I would say home is kind of a warm, fuzzy blanket for me.
Yeah.
My parents are both very introverted, so it's very chill. It's very low key. They love to cook. Speaking of enchiladas, They love to garden.
Oh.
They read. It's a very like chill zen, like there's not a lot of chaos or crazy going on.
Yeah.
They like to play board game. Like it's just I'm very lucky, and I'm very, very aware that that's not everybody's experience.
Yeah,
either.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's a really cool place to come from, and it sets you up for experiencing interesting things later in life, because you have that like foundation, so you feel like you can risk a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny because when I was younger, like I'd say in my mid-20s or so, mm-hmm. my parents would often frustrate me a bit, because I was like, why aren't you as maybe openly like proud of me in a way?
Yeah.
Like misread it to some extent. And it took a while, and some life experience and some hard life experiences as well, for me to realize that my parents never equated my self-worth to anything I did professionally.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Ever.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you've had that experience. Yeah.
And that it wasn't that they weren't proud. They were proud of me. They're proud of all their kids.
How could they not be proud of you? You have a doctorate. That's
yeah. But that wasn't the important thing for them. The important thing was, did we raise kids who are empathetic and compassionate and kind, and come home and visit us, and who we like to spend time around, and who are good, who are give back to others, and and once that realization clicked, I'm ashamed a little bit, or embarrassed to say that it took a while for that to sink in.
Totally.
It changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how incredibly lucky I have been, in spite of, any life struggles or whatnot, or things me in the industry and such. Having that just constant, even-keeled, unconditional love and support that's completely unbiased towards thing I would do as a singer or a dancer, or
that you were just awesome because you were awesome. You were existing, and that just by that being the case, you yourself are awesome. Yeah, that's that's, it's so basic and cheesy, like an enchilada, but it's absolutely it's absolutely true of like parents who just let their kids be themselves, Yeah. That's and with that, like, I think that we as those kids, we sometimes encounter harder things in life, because we don't realize that we're getting in the way of something until we're there. You know what I mean?
I will freely admit it was a bit of a sheltered existence.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So, and I'd love to hear, as we kind of like go forward, sort of like how you feel you've become unsheltered, like what that process has been for you. You know what I mean?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So like, just, be thinking about that. So, so you were an opera singer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me more about why are you an opera singer? What happened to make you an opera singer?
What come to that conclusion that that's what they want to do? Well, it all started, I would say, in like junior high, early high school-ish.
Yeah. Because
for theater, and I was awkward. Definitely a late bloomer. I mean, middle school was not my best time.
Yeah.
And theater was fun, and, all the other nerdy kids were there, and we could be cool and support each other through this weird time in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that it was really fun to be on stage, and I started doing like speech and debate and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And initially, like, I would say by the end of my freshman year of high school, my life goal was to get a BFA in musical theater and move to New York and be a Broadway star.
Oh, yeah. That's such a beautiful high school dream that many of us have had. I myself wanted to end up as a Broadway star. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Somehow I convinced my mom that I should try voice lessons, because obviously if I was going to get into a good school, I needed to get better at things. And I mean, I come from a fairly musical family. I'm one of 4 kids, and we all grew up playing musical instruments.
Okay, cool.
Mother's a professional cellist with the Nevoyne Symphony. I played viola. Yeah. My little brother, who's an accountant now, played violin. And then my little sister is literally just finishing her master's in violin performance at Florida State.
Oh my gosh, amazing. You all are just a musical bunch.
Yeah, it was all like full, it was like, this is just another musical thing. And she was like, we can try this. And I was referred to this voice teacher by my choir teacher at school. Mm-hmm. His name was Scott Miller. Okay. And I really credit him with introducing me to opera. Yeah. And I started studying with him the summer before my sophomore year of high school. Yeah. And I loved the process of learning how to sing.
Tell me more about that. What about the process did you really love?
So my first opera experience was seeing La Traviata.
That's right.
At opera.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a weird coincidence. Like right after I had convinced Mom to let me try voice lessons, we got these free tickets to go see an opera. Yeah. And I'm not sure why I said yes, because I think at that time I was pretty sure that opera was very boring and dumb, kid.
Like you do.
Right, like you do. Mm-hmm. And I remember absolutely loving it and not being bored and being on the edge of my seat in Act 3 and this soprano had me in the palm of her hand. I was like, maybe she won't die? Maybe it won't happen? Oh. And this gorgeous dress, and she had this big canopy bed, and she was beautiful. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest diva ever.
Okay, so my understanding of La Traviata, and please forgive me, please correct me if I'm incorrect about the plot here. I just want to get people up to speed on why she's in a bed in a big dress. So she is a sex worker, correct? In La Traviata?
She's okay. I may be putting this incorrectly per se. She's more of a courtesan.
Okay, cool. Okay,
It's
such a fine line.
Woman who socializes with men in seductive ways, but maybe isn't necessarily a sex worker per se. She's allowed into. Gosh, I'm not putting this very, very eloquently.
She's yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. So she's a very courtesan in the royal court, but part of her downfall is the fact that she's this a loose woman, sort of, and that's part of the reason why she gets the consumption and is laying in bed with a giant dress on. Is that accurate?
I feel like I would need to delve into it just a little bit more. Somewhere there are some singers and music historians who would be like, oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
They're not That's basically, yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, I saw, it's actually like really cool. I saw the Lyric Opera in Chicago, Renee Fleming do it.
Oh,
I know.
what a queen.
She is a queen. Absolute diva. Good Lord. The definition. Yeah. So we can move. It is a moving experience to see La Traviata with a woman who can really sing it,
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remembered that piquing my interest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started voice lessons.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by the process of learning how to sing. And I think that surprised me because I was kind of captivated by this, like, oh my gosh, it's attention and divas and fancy dresses and things. But what actually kind of kept me in and what really sustained me and interested me wasn't that. It was the process of, well, how do you learn how to sing? How do you do these things? And I had this wonderful teacher, Scott, who I had voice lessons with practically every Saturday morning.
Wonderful.
From like the summer before my sophomore year of high school through the beginning of my senior year of high school.
That's such a long time to be with the same teacher.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys had a pretty deep relationship by that point.
He was a huge reason why I wanted to do opera.
Yeah.
And the seeing La Traviata may have been the spark in a way, but Scott showed me that there was a path to actually do this and get better and improve and how you actually could get there, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Miller, as I called him at the time.
Of course. Yeah. Which changes when we become adults and we realize that they're just people too, It's...
Because he was working on his doctorate at the time.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, you taught at like 9 a.m. on Saturday. All that time while doing a doctorate, while raising 3 or 4 kids. Wow. He was married.
Wow.
And on faculty, like at the University of Nebraska, Omaha.
That's insane.
I don't know how he did it. Yes. I'm bored.
Yeah. That's
so tired.
Yeah, grad school can really take it out in you. They really could do that. Yeah. So like in terms of the kind of the embodied, like, because when you're training to be a singer, you're actually turning your body into an instrument.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or honing it, or shaping it, or in some ways, some people would even say stripping away stripping away excess tension and trauma, perhaps, or like stripping away barriers so that you can act it out of your own way, which is kind of how I actually perceive it.
Yeah. I really love that. It for whatever reason, that inspires a picture of just like of something just opening up and light coming through, Yeah. And that is sort of what the voice, when you hear someone who's singing and doing so like very like technically well or whatever, that there's a purity of tone to it that is very, it sounds like light almost, you know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a big difference between an opera singer who's singing technically well, but is clearly like very, very focused on like, I'm going to get this right, versus like Renee Fleming, who is technically just beautiful. Yeah. I mean, chef's kiss. He's using that technique as like as a vehicle to like sing from her soul.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's something. Yeah, like learning and the process of becoming a singer is learning how to just sing from your soul, right?
Right. I mean, it's kind of a process of learning all of this information and taking on all of these different concepts and fielding all of those within a very, very competitive field, a very stressful field, and in the real world, and navigating, life circumstances and all of these different factors, and figuring out how to take all of that information and sift through it and figure out what works and in what way and what language gets you in the best headspace, what allows you to, access your breath support effectively, how, what sensations can you tap into? And I think it's also one thing I've really come to realize and come to terms with over the recent years. Also really a process of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. In this being open and curious and creative and not judgmental towards yourself. Because you can't actually judge the sound that's coming out of you. Your own ears are so deceptive, per se.
Yeah.
And so it's a very vulnerable process.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that I think one of the reasons I find the process of learning how to sing and clearing technical hurdles and applying them artistically is that the more I learn and the more I get more comfortable, the more comfortable I get, the more confident in my ability to do something consistently, technically and artistically, and put it all together and present it. I feel like I actually figure out more about who I am as a person, which is pretty cool. And it's really tied into performing per se. It's more tied into I figured something out in the practice room and it's sticking. And there's no guarantee, especially if you're a soprano. I mean, there's no guarantee that anybody's going to ever pay you.
Exactly.
Especially, as you're going, climbing up the ranks and going through school. That is one of the first things you learn is this is really hard. This is really, really hard. You better really learn this. And it doesn't pay well. So you have that, you can't be in it for the money. You can't be in it for the celebrity and the 5 seconds of fame. And, that little percentage of glory per se that may or may not come with it. And I've just found the process to be really, really cool.
Neat.
And really informative.
Yeah, that is, it's interesting that, so there's a few things that I'm hearing there. So the thing that I was hearing there that was so, sparked something for me, because this idea that similar to singing opera, becoming a minister, you're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it, you're doing it because it's something that you feel you have to do. You feel compelled to do, that it's something that you do because this is how you're going to be fully in your body, and fully in the world. So, which is what I'm hearing kind of in terms of singing and music and creativity for you. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's I laugh looking back at this, but I don't think my parents encouraged me to pursue singing because they thought I was going to be the next great thing or any, they thought I had talent, and they were like, oh, you could do this. You're kind of good, Melanie. You should keep doing it. But I really think they encouraged me, not because they were so awestruck by my voice. They encouraged me because they realized I was willing to do the work. And when I started out at 15, I was so scared to sing in front of people that I looked for opportunities when the house wasn't, occupied by everybody to practice.
Wow.
So if my mom was like, Melanie, do you want to go to the mall with your sister and I'd be like, no, I'm going to practice a little bit.
What was the music that you were practicing back then?
Oh gosh. What were some of the things I sang? A lot of vocalises, a lot of exercises. Mm-hmm. Actually, that was a big thing with Mr. Miller.
Yeah.
The 20 minutes of every lesson were all technique, or at least 15. At least 15.
That's amazing.
And then the last part, we could get to the songs. It's kind of funny, looking back, that being the musical theater nerd I was at that time, I really did buy into the whole, art song.
Yeah.
This was what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And so, do it.
I love that.
I was all in. I don't know why. Also, that was probably one reason my parents encouraged it. They were like, Melanie's listening to an adult. Don't listen to us.
Right.
Okay.
Was there, when you think back, are there particular pieces of music that felt transcendent or specifically moving to you when you were first learning?
Yes, and actually the piece that in some ways really has defined my trajectory in many ways, it actually wasn't a vocal piece. I'm going to backtrack to when I was probably about, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
My brother had started playing the cello. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Yo-Yo Ma was a big deal then in our house.
Yeah, he still is.
Okay, still is.
Yeah.
And there was a special on PBS called Inspired by Bach, which is the 6-part documentary series where Yo-Yo Ma took the 6 unaccompanied cello suites and did a collaboration with another artist for each of them. So one is, I believe it's Boston Public Garden. Another is with Torval and Dean from the ice dance world.
Yeah.
There was, he did them all, did different collaborations, but the one that stood out to me was the 3rd suite, the C major suite, which he did with this dance company.
Yeah.
And I don't know what about it exactly thrilled me so much, but I just remember loving and being fascinated by this particular portion of this documentary.
Yeah.
The piece is titled Falling Downstairs.
Okay.
And because all the dancers start on these stairs and then fall down and literally just almost prostrate themselves on the floor in this really way, and then they get up and they're doing all these things. They're in Renaissance-esque tunics, even everybody, men and men. That was also, I joke nowadays, it was probably men are not wearing pants? The 90s and it's Nebraska. I've never seen that before. So, they just what is this? This is different.
Yeah.
I remember all of the conversations that they would have with the choreographer. At the time, I was like, this guy, I don't see a lot of guys with crazy curly hair, and he was very interesting, and he'd talk about his mom, Maxine, being this creative inspiration, and we'd have these conversations with Yo-Yo Ma, and they'd, talk about how they want to make everything kind of flow together and fuse into one entity or whatnot. And this just thrilled me.
Yeah.
And that was Mark Morris, the choreographer, and Mark Morris danced.
Really? Oh my gosh.
And that was my first introduction that I remember, vividly really remember, into professional classical music and modern dance.
Yeah.
And I've always loved Bach. I loved playing the Bach cello suites. You can play them on viola.
Yeah.
They're my favorite.
I love them. Do you have a favorite one?
The C major suite.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you on that one. That's a good one. Yeah.
that piece, in a way, that experience and that music kind of defined so many things along the way. My first opera role was a baroque.
Which one?
The Coronation of Poppaea.
Okay. Yep.
But very, very cool opera.
Yeah.
Very, very sexy music.
Nice.
A little story. It reads really well, like 350 plus years later. Let's just say that.
I love operas like that were written like a long time ago, but they're so human in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, which is something like a lot of people don't associate sort of humanity or like bodiness with opera necessarily.
So interesting because it's so raunchy. So raunchy.
Yeah, a lot of opera really is. Like there's a lot because it's about like relationships and people,
right?
And
exactly
how we mess up and what, who we are and all of our flaws and all of that. Yeah.
I mean, Bridgerton with singing.
It is. Yeah, opera is
that is what opera is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Be a little bit more on the season 2 side of Bridgerton. There's like we wouldn't see as much like Regé Jean Page,
That's unfortunate.
But yes, and it's interesting that opera I mentioned, the Coronation of Poppaea.
Yeah.
By the composer Monteverdi. Mm-hmm. That's a story about Nero's mistress Poppaea, who slips away to power to become him, like gets rid of the wife du jour, like causes all of this drama because she's using what she's got to get power. She's trying to survive like everybody else, and it's about the lengths that people will go to get power, to preserve power, to keep it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
Just as relevant today as it was when it premiered.
Absolutely. And I think what I find in opera also is that there's a lot of examples of women roles where there's like a sense of empowerment in that role. Do you find that that's the case given what you know?
Yes and no. I think it depends a lot on the specific opera and the specific character, mm-hmm. and then the direction. And how that character's story is being presented and seen. Yeah. There's a very famous opera, Rigoletto, mm-hmm. also by Verdi, just mm-hmm. like Traviata. Mm-hmm. And that's a very complicated and messy story to tell in 2022 in a way, because it is about a total sleazebag duke who has this court jester, Rigoletto, and we'll fast forward through all the details, but basically Rigoletto falls in love in quotes, mm-hmm. air quotes, mm-hmm. with Rigoletto's daughter, Gilda, and his version of, well, this is what I want, is to have his men kidnap her, take her to his palace, and really, depending on the director, what happens next is either rape or consensual. Ah, yeah. Oof, that could be rough. And then he essentially forgets she ever existed. Wow. And there's more to that story, but the opera ends with her, Gilda, sacrificing herself to save the Duke's life. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really fucked up. There to unpack. Yeah. That's also true. Yeah. A variety of ways. It's just as relevant today mm-hmm. as it back then. But man, is that a lot of mess. It is a lot of mess. Yeah. Okay. So the Bach cello suites. I have to agree with you. I am also like a super Bach fan. The place where I studied music had an annual Bach festival. Yeah, and so I got to sing all 4 of the major choral works, which for my little baby self, I was like 18 or 19 singing the B minor Mass, and I was just overcome with it, because it's such a beautiful piece, and it's so transcendent in a lot of ways, I love singing Bach. It's hard. It's very hard. Not all singers like it. Yeah. He never gives to breathe. No. But it's very deeply spiritual. Yes. and very soulful. And one of the things I coach, one of my favorite opera coaches of all time, shout out to Riley McKinch. Riley, we love Riley. One thing that Riley said about Bach and his vocal music that always stuck with me is that it's not really about the singer. It's about the ensemble, and it's about where your line dovetails and fits into the soundscape as a whole that he's creating. It's about, look at me, look at all these things I can do with my voice. It's really about how does your voice support and intermingle with and fit with this texture to create an entity that is really bigger than yourself.
Yeah, interesting. So do you think that I definitely agree with you on Bach and him doing that. And it makes me wonder about different composers' sort of styles or the music that they create and what it says about how they see the world. Do you have any, and for me, I think it's also that what music inspired you to kind of like fresh or original thought? Like, was there a particular piece that kind of like took you away from like your standard opera stuff and into something more interesting?
Oh, yes. And actually, this is a great
segue.
Yes, a good segue.
Cool.
Oh my gosh. Words are hard. Words are really hard.
They are so hard, especially when you're like doing a podcast and suddenly you're like, I have to word and words. I don't know words. Yeah. I feel
a lot for all podcasters right now. There's a piece that I was introduced to actually in undergrad. I never performed it then, but I did it a couple times through grad school, and then actually recently back in the fall with a pianist where I actually choreographed it and sang and danced it.
Cool.
And it is Eve's Song by Jack Heggie, who's a contemporary American composer, still living, still working, very celebrated for his operatic and vocal works. Yeah. His most famous opera is Dead Man Walking.
Okay, yeah.
That is like, it's like a knife punch in the gut.
Wow. And that's about Helen Prejean and wow, that's cool.
Yes.
Wow.
It's wonderful. Yeah. And this piece, Eve's Song, is actually, it's an 8 total songs, like a little song cycle. Texts by a poet named Philip Little. And it is essentially chronicling Eve's story of Adam and Eve from Eve's perspective as a modern woman. And so the first song starts off, I've always interpreted as she is looking back and getting angry and frustrated that men have always had the final say, and men have always been able to tell this story. That when bad things happen to women like her, when something bad happens, or when she made a mistake, everything after it, all the bad, all the evil, all the nasty stuff that she has no part of, was all her. That when bad things happen to women, it's their fault.
Yeah. Wow. And isn't that interesting given what happened this week with the Supreme Court and the way that they have responded to people's understandable outrage.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's because you have the institution, whether that institution is God or is a court or whatever, you have men using the power of that institution to enact interpersonal violence on women. So and so you performed this recently and incorporated dance, and so that leads to this portion here, because the thing that's cool about you that I'm just like really digging is that you've gone from just like doing opera, because a lot of people think about opera from like kind of the shoulders upward, but you have now incorporated dance into it, and you're exploring kind of a synthesis of both. Tell me more about the Eve song performance.
Sure.
Yeah, and in related to all of this. Yeah.
Dance has always, from a very early age, been a part of my life. I danced when I was like in elementary school. I took a break in middle and high school because I too many music things going on. College, and that's, I mean, perfect timing in a way, because like my first experience that I talked about with the Bach cello suites and Mark Morris, I was I got a dance minor in undergrad, and Susan Levine, the head of the dance program, love her. Susan like let me into that space and gave me space and creativity and like a place to make mistakes and, try new things. And I basically got to do everything that the majors did, showcases and like big performing things, which was fine. I had all the music stuff going on. To do like master classes with, people from the Merce Cunningham's company and Paul Tate. I mean, I did modern and ballet multiple days a week for like 4 years, basically. Yeah. And this really cool world that was so different from opera, in how opera was so rigid and so structured, and it was a fairly intense environment that I was in with that. And it felt really high, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver. Whereas I always had this space to go to where it was so open. And expectations.
Wonderful. Like
it was just, I was there because it was interesting and fun. And I also had my choir teacher in undergrad, Dr. Therese Hibbard. Her thing was body singing. She was a former dancer also. And so it was this combination of like spending all of this time with Therese and Susan. What is body singing? Tell me more. What's entailed in that? She did all of her like doctoral research in basically how to use movement and use different rhythms and different like things to get choral singers to open up and find some more freedom and expression and not be so, rigid per se. And so she would make us do a lot of exercises where we would like take our hands and like kind of like go from like our solar plexus and like go around in a circle and be like, let's make like big waves. And then we do a lot of like arm swinging and do all these fun things, but it wasn't just to swing your arms. It was like connect your whole body. It's like a whole body with it. And so we would do a lot of warm-ups with a lot of movement. And it wasn't movement as in like very strict, rigid ballet terminology per se, but it was free-flowing and a very modern, very accessible movement. Nothing that like somebody needed 10 years of ballet to comprehend. It was any physical body could take and adapt to what suited them best. He was really big about using the whole body to sing in that way. So from an early age, that was a big part of, or from an early start, not early in my
chronological.
Now words. But basically, when I was starting like really hardcore study voice, and this is what I want to do with my life, dance was this almost release. This other thing that was really cool and interesting, and I think just brought me a lot of joy and creativity. Also gave me something that was just a little different. I've just found that I do it. I did it because I just liked it. Wanted to do it, and I think that's why it was successful. Is I didn't put as many maybe pressures on myself or expectations. It allowed me to find pathways to bring that kind of creativity and joy into singing. And go ahead. I love that you asked me about Eve Song, and then I went on like a tangent about like, this is the backstory of all of this.
I love it too. That's why podcasts are good, because we get to like hear all the backstories.
But to relate that back to Eve Song, I had performed Eve Song I think twice before in its entirety, and a pianist, her name's Carrie Miles. She's also total boss, approached me about performing the piece because she really, really liked it. She also, like me, loves contemporary music and doing things that are a little bit outside of the box. And she had mentioned that she wanted to look into getting a dancer for the actual performance. And I was like, oh, I have an idea. And so I went, okay, Carrie, I have an idea. If you hate it, I really will not be offended.
Yeah.
Because what if I do both?
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yeah.
And okay, let's do it. And it was really, really, I mean, it was a little intimidating because I had never taken on something that big, or it had been a while since I'd had a project that big to work with.
For sure.
I had done some choreographing before, but not anything super crazy or anything.
Right.
But it was fun to basically kind of use my entire instrument at this like experimental palette and get to be like, okay, well, what is the music saying here that I would like to interpret and how is it best interpreted? And then how can I incorporate that with what I'm doing vocally? Is that all going to work together? And then how do I pace myself over, a nearly 30-minute song cycle so that, don't die by the end. So it was such a fun, creative, a little stressful at times, but so fun.
That's awesome.
It made me want to do more of it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I please do. So like in terms of Eve's story, how did you find, in terms of Eve's story, like how did you choose to embody that through dance?
So I have I think of Eve's story as almost like a little mini opera.
Yeah.
To people. Yes. And the first story is her reminiscing in kind of a very angry fashion. I wanted all of the movement to reflect what she was saying. I did not want movement just to be movement, just for movement's sake, just to be like, oh, look, I can do this cool thing. Look at me.
Yeah.
I want all to be very intentional. Yet also give myself some freedom and space to switch things up and make choices and give myself a little bit of improv space. I mean, the beauty of it being a one person choreographic experience is I had that freedom, but I also needed to make sure I had that structure as well. I really actually there were a couple things that I did throughout. Like, where do I start? Once again, words are hard.
Yeah, they are, especially when you're trying to like put words to your own creative concepts. Yeah, that's why you dance and sing them, because you can't put words to them.
But I did not. One of the things I was like, I did not want excess movement that did not need to be there. If there was ever a time where I was like, I need to do something to be impressive, I was like, nope. You got to cut it out. So one of the first things I did was use the piano as an actual like extension of the choreography itself. Yeah. One of the things that Carrie and I discussed and did several times was actually have me kind of sing into the piano with a lid up on a grand piano. What that does is it creates these really cool overtones. And when you do that, and when you're that close to the piano, it then also gives you this almost like a ballet bar that you can use as a prop to like do some really cool, like, I did a lot of really deep plies and then like rolling up through my feet and doing some cool, like almost kind of like she's like reborn and like coming out of her cocoon to like open her back up to the world and talk about this very, very deeply moving, painful story. Yeah. As the piece progresses, I also wanted some distinct characters for each song, because each song has a very distinct style and flavor and different and very different emotions. She kind of goes back in time. Yeah. Actually, song. That's always how I've interpreted that. And she like goes back to the beginning, like before the apple. Yeah. Like way before the apple. And the second song is really, really peaceful and very tranquil, but the rhythms are a little off kilter. So something's a little funky because she's really happy. she's in that state of like, it's fine, things are good, but she says, I have no peace at night several times.
Oh, interesting.
So I did this song.
A deep unsettledness.
Oh, what?
A deep unsettledness.
Yes, actually, oh my gosh, your words are way better than mine.
Oh.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's something is just bugging her, just a little bit below the surface, but she can't quite name it.
Yeah.
The third song is a big pivot, actually, and she's introducing herself to the animals, and she's like, "Oh, who are you? And who are you? Can I eat you? I don't know." Like, it's much more playful, and so I wanted really, really playful movement. She starts it like, I actually choreographed it so that I start it almost like playing with my feet, and then I roll over, and it's very cutesy, and all of the movement is meant to be like almost childlike.
Yeah.
And very, very playful. It has a real innocent quality to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, because she's interacting with these animals for the first time. Everyone's new. Everyone's a baby. Sort of. Yeah. The
fourth song, she meets the snake.
Oh.
And that is where I wanted to use the floor and the piano and a very distinct character. So I actually play with going underneath the piano at that point. And use basically the snake, who has a voice per se in that song. It alternates between Eve and the snake.
Yeah.
And I had this snake be very like slithery, good modern floor work. And also
like sinuous.
With hands that were a little bit more like, I'm playing with my fingers a little bit more, just to create any kind of like interesting, cool, curvy shapes. Like it cool things with my shoulders, like rolling over, and just any like slithery, sinister movement.
Sinister, yeah.
Then the fifth song is very jazzy.
Cool.
And they're almost kind of having like a little flirty conversation with the snake. That book has entered, and he is excited. We're going to talk to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's a little jazzy. It's almost a little like, I don't want to say Fosse, because that gives the little, not exactly what's going on there, but it's sensual. Everything's just a little more interesting. And at one point she says, visibility is a warning or an invitation, and it never tells you which.
Yeah.
And so there's some fun knee moments in there, playing with that. Yeah.
That's really cool.
On and on about how that process went and how I shaped those. But basically, every song had its own distinct character. Yeah. And I wanted all of the movement to be very dramatically motivated.
Yeah.
And it was really, really interesting and informative, because I almost wish that more singers did that from an earlier age. And it actually made me want to do that with more work. Even if it wasn't necessarily movement that I might incorporate in every single performance setting. Because it really made me about what it was I was saying and why I was saying it, and how I would actually physicalize that in a performance.
Yeah. That not only are you bringing sounds and creating shapes in those sounds, but that you're expressing those shapes through movement in the body as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the incorporation of those two things. That's really cool.
I think humans are born to move in creative and in ways. That everybody and every body is capable of moving in really interesting, creative, unique ways that are really personal to them. Yeah. Seeing that, I think one of the things that I wrote when I, was sending you, like, here's my info, here's my life.
Yeah.
Is that one of my favorite parts about being at Mark Morris is getting to take and being part of this teaching artist training program that I'm in now.
Yeah.
is getting to take Patricia Hall's Afro-Caribbean class.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the coolest things about Pat's class is how accessible and welcoming and joyful the environment and the atmosphere is. The juju's real good.
Yeah. It's got good juju and mojo, both at the same time.
And that kind of a setting, anybody dance.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Find and discover and create really, really interesting movement.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see how people who maybe like if they walked into New York City Ballet are going to be told they are not dancers, become dancers.
Yeah.
In that environment. There's one woman in particular who is, of a senior citizen age. Sure. Who often comes to class. Can she kick her nose with her shin? Probably not. It doesn't matter, because she has some of the most elegant movement I have ever seen.
That's beautiful.
Incredible. And it's like she takes such care. And it's like it means so, everything means something.
Yeah.
So I always find that I end up watching her.
Yeah. And related back to what we were talking about before, in terms of like when we are teachers, that so often we're taught, and that is that every person that we encounter has something to really teach us if we're paying attention.
Yes, absolutely.
Including this woman in your dance class. Like, who knew that she would be such an inspirational figure for you?
And it's so cool. It's just so cool and so fascinating, and also really, really encouraging and affirming.
Yeah.
So much of what we get pounded into our heads in classical music is that it has to be perfect.
Yeah.
You have to get, and especially as a woman, there's so much anxiety that manifests because you are told that if it's not perfect, it is not right, and you will not. While in many cases, you also watch male counterparts maybe not get it right, but be allowed to pass through.
Yeah.
And because of the numbers game and the reality business.
Yeah.
And
it's been nice to become a tenor, I will say. Yeah.
And when that's what you grow, when so much of what you're doing is based in how do I get it right, you sometimes lose sight of like how do I create, and how do I do something that is joyful and interesting.
Yeah. Expressing yourself freely. Versus, like the certainly like classical music is expressing yourself, but it requires so much practice and effort and time to get to the point where you're able to express yourself as fully as you wish to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was an interview that Kelly O'Hara, Broadway, did with, I believe, Classical Singer magazine. And this isn't verbatim, I'm summarizing.
Sure.
But she made mention in the article that many of the classical singers she has encountered over the years are so afraid to make a mistake. They're almost paralyzed by the fear that if they try anything, that they will be judged harshly. Yeah. One of the things that I love about the Mark Morris Teaching Artist training program is how that environment just in general fosters a lot of creativity, a lot of interesting movement, that it's open to just about anybody who wants to dance. And actually that's a big Mark Morris saying.
Yeah.
It's dance isn't for everybody, dance is for anybody.
Yeah.
As if not everybody maybe wants to dance or wants to do it, and that's okay. Nobody should be forced to do something they don't want to do.
Yeah.
But anybody who wants to dance should have the space and the access and the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it really is, that there's something that's so powerful about sharing the movement of one's body with other people. What's that?
I think it's liberating.
Yeah. How so? How do you? What's liberating about it?
I think when you unleash creativity physically, in that way, I at least for me, I think you kind of reclaim a sense of play and joy and almost like this childlike, not innocence, but a childlike sense of play and joy.
Yeah.
Is so desperately needed. And that we don't allow ourselves the space and the ability to access nearly as much as we probably should.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's a really powerful thing, to allow yourself to be that vulnerable.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's specifically, dance specifically, I think, offers that amount of vulnerability in a way that other artistic expressions don't necessarily. So, because you are you have to be present in your body. You have to be there. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Whoa. So you said, I remember in your, in the stuff that you wrote, to me, you said that this dance class is like church.
Sweaty church.
Sweaty church. I love that.
Very.
Because I'm all about sweaty churches. Not actual churches being sweaty. You know what I'm saying. Spaces with transcendence that are sweaty. But yeah, no, the sweaty church thing. So why is it church? What makes it church?
The community.
Yeah.
Having a space like that where it's very welcoming. I see a lot of the same people every week. I mean, not, there's new people can go, but a lot of the same people will show up time and time again. And Pat's been teaching at Mark Morris for many years at this point. I mean, so she's kind of gathered like a community around her that wants her, because they love what she offers. Yeah. And what she's created. I think it's the community, the good juju, the good vibes, this environment that's very joyful, and so it feels safe to make mistakes. Try something new. I mean, I'm from Nebraska. Afro-Caribbean jazz is not something, or Afro-Caribbean dance is not exactly what I grew up with.
No, certainly not.
I think it's a combination of the community, the good vibes, this joyous, open space where it's okay to try something, because it's actually not about getting it right. It's more about being vulnerable enough to allow your body to like give over to like the rhythmic drive created. Let that lead what you're doing instead of like overthinking everything. Right. And it becomes this really like spiritual experience.
Yeah, I can definitely sense that. Yeah, and I'm having this like larger thought that will eventually coalesce, and it's related to how music and dance both mark time. That each moment can be accounted for in
Yes.
In a dance piece, or like specifically, like earlier we were talking about Bach and how Bach does these like counterpuncal, like these things where everything is interplaying and everything is, but that it's just taking into account just nanoseconds. He gets into those 30-second notes, and you're just like, what the hell is happening?
Oh my god! Yes, there's famous choreographer dancer Doris Humphrey.
Okay, yeah.
Called The Art of Making Dances. And I'm paraphrasing.
Sure.
This concept. But one concept that has always stood with me and really just blown my mind throughout the years is she talks about how it's not an actual movement that is interesting. Mm-hmm. And I'm paraphrasing. It's not the movement that's interesting. It's the movement in between the movements that is interesting.
Yeah.
And the same thing with music. It's not individual notes. It's the movement in between the notes, and like the space and the energy and how you are getting from note to note. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That actually transforms what you're doing into something.
Yeah.
Really, really special.
Yeah, it's like it's almost the cosmology of a piece, that it's within you
and your words. Your words are good.
Oh, thanks.
That was the lamest sentence that I've said on this podcast.
No, I love that. It's so, thank you. No, it's totally genuine. Yeah, no, but that's what I'm thinking. Like that we are trying to capture moments. We're trying to almost like keep exquisite, just, pure moments of dance, celebration, liberation, praise, whatever it is. And that music and dance both do that so well by like just being on every beat, Yeah. So it feels like a whole universe is being created, I've been thinking about this piece by Poulenc, in his Gloria. I don't know if you know Poulenc's Gloria.
The Poulenc Gloria?
Yeah, with particularly the Qui Sedes, which is I think the sixth movement.
Oh my gosh, yes. I've sung this actually.
I'm sure you have, yeah, because it's such it's a really like soprano kind of role. Yeah, and it's like for me, like we're talking about like the structure, the architecture, of things, and that's one that piece for me is does have like almost kind of like a lace-like architecture to it. There's something very powerful about the soprano voice in that piece. It's like a Sophia wisdom kind of thing. Yeah, I'm just going off on a tangent now.
And like, look at the score and listen to like a really good recording.
Yeah.
With that in mind, like a lace-like quality.
Yeah.
With a powerful yet feminine, like a powerful feminine energy.
That's the energy I get from that piece, and we're kind of talking about that today.
Write the program notes for most everything.
Yeah.
Opera, because
I love music.
Right, you have some good kernels and good nuggets.
Thank you. I'm a nuggety kind of human. Do my best. Opera, the field of opera is like a very specific, and I'd imagine insular community. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you find that there's a lot of pressure or expectation on one's behavior? Do you feel that there are undue expectations put upon you in terms of like how you're supposed to behave or who you're supposed to be or the persona that you present in public, that kind of thing? And do you find that that's is that part of the reason that you broke from the establishment?
Well, to answer your first question,
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yes. I think it's something that any like high performance entity or sport or performing arts vein, I think there is a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation, and a lot of it is self-imposed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, singers are always their own worst critics.
Yeah.
Or people are always their own worst critics.
Yes.
Yes. To the second one, in part.
Yeah.
I would actually say yes and maybe yes and no.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah.
I pivoted and kind of went off the rails and off the beaten path per se, in part because I was frustrated by the expectations and some of the pressures and the realities of the kind of institutionalized problems.
Yeah.
I also went off the rails in part because, in a traditional sense, I kind of failed. Opera singer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Nothing came together technically.
Yeah.
At a very early age for me, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
I had a really, really intense undergrad environment, which I look back and while there were many, many good things about it, I also question how healthy some of that was.
Yeah.
It was just a very, very intense environment with a teacher who knew what he was doing technically, but was also very like negative and, bitter about his own life choices and things like that. Or his own singing aspirations had panned out. And I think I was in a very intense environment from a very early age.
Yeah, yeah.
And it kind of, in a way, I kind of failed at being an opera singer in many aspects.
I kind of failed at being a minister, so it happens.
Like, that together technically really early, like I worked hard, I improved, I got better, I improved, but like in the world of sopranos, and you're going to be able to do what they need to do technically and artistically to really get into like the big young artist apprenticeship programs that are kind of coveted as being like the end all be all when you're that young.
Yeah.
And now I really never stood a chance.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in a way, from a very early age, I was kind of forced to think outside of the box. And kind of had about like, you're not going to get a lot of rewards in this business, but you clearly like it. Like, you're not bad. You're not terrible.
Yeah.
Love to sing. You love to practice. You love learning. Yeah. So in a way, I've kind of always looked for opportunities along the way. But for a very long time, and kind of made my own opportunities as best I could.
Yeah.
But I was always kind of like chasing this ideal of like, if I can just get into a really good paid young artist program, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, great. And all of a sudden life is just going to be perfect.
Yep.
It's kind of the ideal that whether I meant to or not, I did buy into it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do. Specifically in our early 20s, is going all the way. I know, like it. I was still bitter into my early 30s about things that were not working out for me, and now I'm just like, oh well, things didn't work. Okay, well, I'm just doing my own thing now, But yeah, at that time, it can be very devastating to not get all of the specific. Yeah.
And the danger of that is that very quickly, especially, I can't speak to everybody's experience, but I know I tied my self-worth very to not necessarily the process of singing, which is the thing that I fell in love with and brought me joy.
Yeah.
I tied my self-worth to what does everybody else think of my singing, and how have I been deemed worthy enough to be a singer and to be professional and to be accepted into this exclusive industry.
Yeah.
Which is a very dangerous headspace and it's very toxic.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah. I think that I also experienced that both within music and within ministry. That impulse. Yeah. It's totally real. Yeah.
That all changed, I would say. I think it was a slow burn, probably. But that all changed in, I would say, 2018.
Yeah.
I had just started my first professional gig. I was an education outreach artist at Arizona Opera.
Woo!
And I was so excited to start this gig because I remember a couple months before when I got it, it was like the biggest thing ever in my mind at that time. I called my mom in a Starbucks parking lot, like screaming because I was like, I'm getting paid to sing opera.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time this has happened, and this is a really big deal.
That is a big deal.
Because when you're a soprano and it's been a long road, that is like,
it's huge.
It's super, super cool.
Not everybody does that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically the contract was, it was doing like abridged versions of opera. In this case, it was an abridged version of Hansel and Gretel. We performed and toured throughout the Phoenix area and then to some different areas in the surrounding.
There's a lot going on in the street over by you right now.
Can you hear that? Oh,
I do. I can hear. I'm like, what the?
We probably should cut that.
The whole city's burning down around you.
So it's just Brooklyn.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you so much. This has been such a rich conversation.
Aiden, this is. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been so nice and so much fun to just talk to you.
I agree.
All of this has just been so much fun. Yeah, I could go on forever and ever. We should, yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to text me. We can be friends. Like, that would be totally cool. There's so much more to talk about.
Goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, totally.
I'm so glad Wesley mentioned that this was a thing that he was a part of.
Yeah.
Used us because it's been just so much fun.
It has been
about
all the stuff,
passions that I just love to do and fuse together.
Exactly, and and this is what it's about for me because it's like spiritual. It's like it goes beyond religion or God or whatever. It's about being present in life and in our bodies and being in community and like building creativity and love and all of those, like that's what it's about.
Well, spirituality and a spiritual experience can happen in a variety of different environments.
Exactly. And very few of them necessarily happen in church, although they can definitely happen in church for sure as well. We didn't even get into that, which is so cool. but I've really appreciated talking about kind of like how the sacred infuses itself within creativity. So yeah, it's been cool.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important. When it all lines up, and when you can like get to that place where you're curious and open and not judgmental, and you can be vulnerable enough and you feel safe enough to be vulnerable, and open like that with your body, whether it be voice or dance or movement or both together.
Yeah,
it is a transformative spiritual experience.
It is.
I think that's why people keep coming back to to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that we are, it's also the sense of co-creation that we have the ability to co-create reality, and that we can do so with each other, mindfully and joyfully, and through a dance class or wherever. So yeah. Anyway, well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to Melanie, Dr. Melanie Holm, for joining me today, and thank you to Gail Gallagher, who is my editor and also the composer of the theme song. Thank you to Wesley Sloat, who is also one of the editors for New Faith New Media Network, which is the network of which I am a part. I would suggest that you go look at newfaithnewmedia.net and see the other fine programs that are part of our lineup. So I will be back in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be talking about witchcraft. Woohoo! All right, I hope to see you then. Have a good day, y'all.